Hey, it's Bobby Bones with some exciting news. Open booking is here for the Top Shelf Country Cruise, setting sail February 2026 aboard the luxurious Celebrity Reflection. Spots are filling up fast, so book your stateroom today or sign up to become a lineup insider to receive the final lineup 48 hours prior to the public. Don't miss your chance to make February 2026 unforgettable. Visit TopShelfCountryCruise.com. That's TopShelfCountryCruise.com.
You know, some people say that Odoo business management software is like fertilizer, the way it promotes growth and all. But other people say Odoo is like a magic beanstalk because it grows with your company and is also magically affordable. And there's some people who would even say Odoo's individual software programs come together to build the perfect suite like building blocks. Well, Odoo is all of these things. Fertilizer, magic beanstalk, building blocks for business. So sign up now at odoo.com. ODOO.com.
I just think Baby Yoda is like 100 times cuter than the Porgs.
You're crazy. It's a bird that makes sad faces. Way cuter than Yoda.
It's still just it's a bird.
Oh, hey. Hey, Eli.
Oh, hey. Hi, guys. Hello. Oh, hi.
Yeah, you look,
concerned? Scared? It's a face.
I guess both. I guess
yeah, what's
both.
up? That's a weird look.
Made a noise.
So, you know how I spend the first half of my day following Cecil at a distance so he doesn't know I'm there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the stalking.
Right.
Stalking him?
Yeah, court already decided it's technically not that. Anyways, you know what I mean. Anyways, at the supermarket today, some guy bumped him with his cart, and Cecil just took him into the baking aisle and murdered him. Just left him right there, just all covered in blood for bumping into him with a cart. And then as he left the supermarket, someone accidentally did that thing where you open your car door into your car door because you're opening it at the same, and then he killed both of the people in that car at the same time too.
Yeah. All right, yeah, no, hilarious story, Eli. It's because today's episode is Killer Petey, so you made up the story about Cecil murdering people.
No, I didn't. He's supposed to be here any minute. Look outside.
Okay, yeah, he's parking. He gets out. Oh, look, he caught a guy littering. He doesn't like littering.
Told you.
Jesus.
What the oh, Cecil.
Hey, guys, what's up?
Nothing.
Nothing at all. Nothing's up. Why did you...
Cecil Fur, did you just kill someone?
What? What are you talking about? Of course not. But if I did, probably the worst thing you could do is mention that you saw something like that because, then, Eli, that would make you a liability. Speaking of which, are you busy later? Are you busy?
You mean it? I mean, I am busy, and I have to go.
Works like a charm.
Yes, he's faked a few murders today, huh?
Yeah. I know a few stage combat guys. Knew Eli was following me, so I used some blood packs. I killed 3 of them. This way, Eli's going to stop bothering me for like a week or something,
You know some weird people.
I mean, do know weird people. You're right. Wait
a minute. Hold on, guys. He said, you said 3 people. He said you killed 4. 1 outside, 2 in a car, 1 in the baking aisle.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. I really killed that guy in the supermarket. I absolutely killed that guy.
For bumping his cart into you? That's a little extreme, isn't it?
No. The cart contact was incidental. I killed him because he took the last pancetta. You guys want some? I brought it here.
Nice, of course.
No, right?
What?
Yeah.
Justified.
Dumb question.
Make a carbonara out of it.
Last one?
Yeah, right? Fuck that guy. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts. Because this is the internet. That's how it works now. I'm Eli Bosnick, and I'll be slaying it. But I need some guys alongside me to kill it as well. First up, the guys who bleep it out whenever I say you should murder Cecil and Noah.
I'd leave it in if you stop calling her the N-word, Eli. Jesus.
No, it's also just confusing. She's a puppet. How would you even do that?
Don't bleep it out and everyone will know. Also joining us tonight, 2 men who get away with murder every time we pay them, Tom and Heath.
It is so cute that you think this is what being paid feels like.
What? What does it feel like?
So good.
I'm an electronic panhandler at the moment. That's my job.
Now, before we begin tonight, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. Without you,
And electronically panhandle, yes.
without you, we'd be forced into the squalid brutality this week's subject grew up in. Or we'd have to get real jobs. I don't know, one of those. But if you'd like to learn how to join their ranks, be sure to stick around till the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Cecil, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
Today we're going to be talking about Brazilian murder celebrity Killer Petey.
And Tom,
Murder celebrity?
you did an episode about your hero, even though I'm not allowed to do one about mine. Are you ready to make us a match?
Okay, for the last time, Eli, Batman is not really that's not a person. It's not a guy.
You say. So,
It's not. It's a comic.
tell us, Tom, until it's my turn again.
Eli wanted to do an episode about Cecil. That's fine. It's not Batman.
So tell us, Tom, who was Killer Petey?
All right. Well, sometimes on this show, we tell stories of horrible accidents and tragic events and terrible people. And then also sometimes Eli writes an essay about a meme he saw once. So I think this will probably go without saying, but I do want to make sure of two things right at the outset. First, that everybody knows that I'm not writing this episode to glorify a murderer. And second, and probably more importantly, I want Killer Petey to know that I am 100% on his side and that we are best friends. Seriously, for Christmas, I would like Don't Kill Me, and I would like that every year, please.
Oh, that's weird, because given Noah's recent absentia from smoking, Heath and I asked for the same thing this year.
Yeah. No, and for the same reason, I'm asking for the opposite, Petey.
All right, so Killer Petey, or Pedro Rodrigues Fijo, is Brazil's version of Dexter, but without the weird, almost incest stuff.
You're weird. Whatever. It's a good show.
Oh, it's not.
You are. Well, I don't.
Also,
2 good seasons.
Also, please note that I am using the present tense right now because Killer Petey is still very much alive and well, which once we get to the end of this story will almost certainly strike you as impossibly bizarre and deeply unlikely, and yet somehow absolutely and perfectly fitting in the context of the increasingly surreal timeline we have all somehow wandered into.
Okay, when you said impossibly bizarre and deeply unlikely, I'm like, this is Dexter's ending. But then, no, you said perfectly fitting, so not that.
Next week, Petey and Joe Arpaio are going to knife fight for a top spot in Trump's cabinet. Wrists tied together.
Go, Petey.
Yeah.
Right? So in most of these essays that I write about people, I begin with a blurb about when and where somebody was born. It's generally contextually appropriate, but not usually much more interesting than that. Not so for Petey. Petey was born on June 17th, 1954, with a misshapen head. And I know what you're thinking, Tom. I've seen newborns. Misshapen head is pretty standard, yes? Yeah, all right, it is. Generally, though, the reason is a misshapen skull is from traveling down the birth canal and not, as in Petey's case, from his mother having been kicked by his father so hard that it dented the kid's brain pan in utero.
Jesus.
So I guess what I'm saying is things were not off to a good start.
And they're taking soccer way too seriously.
Yeah,
They need to
right.
relax.
Yeah, the dad celebrates the kick by running around the house screaming, "Goal!"
Jesus Christ.
All right, so Pedro, Petey, was the oldest of 8 kids. Not sure about the skull status of the other siblings. Didn't mention it. They grew up poor, though only regular poor and not Brazil poor. That's on a farm in Santa Rita do Sapucaí, a town which I'm certain I grossly mispronounced.
Pretty sure you nailed it.
Pretty sure I didn't. A note on what poor in rural Brazil in the 1950s was like. Think no clean water. Think abundant and violent crime. Think shit everywhere, literally like an open bar on taking a shit everywhere. Disease was rampant. Medical services were rudimentary at best and more often just generally unavailable.
I have to tip when I take a shit, though? Is that how it works? Do I have to tip?
This was like Flint, Michigan rough. It was bad. And Petey's father was a night security guard at a local school. It was generally a pleasant enough person unless he was drinking, which he very often was drinking. This, by the way, means that he was not, in fact, a pleasant person. That other thing I said doesn't count. Petey's mother, Manuela, was a religious disciplinarian who dealt with having 8 kids by beating the shit out of them. So very fine people on both sides.
See, now Manuela doesn't get to listen to our show.
Well, yeah, his dad started beating him in utero, so neither does he. Neither of them.
Both
Dad,
disqualified.
but, yeah.
So with parents like that, Pedro was mentored by his grandfather, who taught him the usual grandfather stuff that you learn, like swimming and farming and hunting and butchering oxen, and how to become a, quote, worthy, correct, and just man, end quote, which sounds great, and it probably would be unless you, I don't know, maybe unless you'd been kicked in the skull as a fetus, in which case it evidently became synonymous with, if anyone upsets you at any time for any reason, that now makes you murder Batman.
What? So, Batman. Batman is murder Batman.
All right, so Petey grew into a scrappy, tough teenager with a huge fucking boner for injustice and not a lot of tolerance for sober self-reflection. Here's a heartwarming tale of childhood hijinks to illustrate that point. As a young teenager, Pedro once borrowed his cousin's horse without permissions. You know, he starts off this story I'm going to tell you as the guy in the wrong. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, right. Even in the wrong, even after you dress up theft as borrowing without permission. Yeah,
Right. Yes. So Pedro's cousin was pissed about this, probably because it's fucking rude to just take other people's shit. And he responded by punching Pedro in the face, which escalated very quickly. Pedro's rejoinder declaring, "I'm going to kill you," which just earned him another bop on the snoot and some general jeers and snide remarks. Now, in a normal family, you might have the start of a prank war, albeit perhaps a more vicious one than normal. To Pedro, you have the justification for his first attempted murder.
Yeah, but when you dance fight punch someone in the nose, it looks like you're showboating. It just looks looks bad.
So next week, Pedro shoved his cousin into a sugarcane press.
Jesus.
And then used all of his might to try to jam his cousin's head between the massive crushing rollers. The machine mangled his cousin's arm, but it actually got stuck on his head, and it wouldn't pull his cousin fully into the machine.
Well, no.
A natural problem solver, Pedro's solution was to run and grab some shears and start stabbing his cousin to try to cut him into small enough pieces so that the machine's rollers would be able to pull him in and finish the job.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I get it. That's like when you flush at a party, the water starts going up. You find some fucking shears, whatever.
Yeah, no, this is the first time your party shears have ever made sense to me, Heath. I get it, man.
It's weird that you holster them, but now I get it. I get
You
it.
see?
Yeah, I get it now. Yeah.
That's just convenience. I don't blame you there at all. So Pedro was eventually pulled away before he could finish the murder, and he ended up spending a whopping one night in jail because his family actually just needed him to work, especially now I guess that his cousin was all fucked up. And so they declined to press charges. For attempted murder, they declined to press
Can you
charges.
do that?
His punishment
No.
was to clean the blood out of the machine.
Yeah, and you thought your Christmas dinner was awkward.
Yeah,
It was. It was.
All right, so you may be thinking, Tom, that's not injustice. That's just a guy who reacts with impossible rage and violence grossly out of proportion to the precipitating event. To which I would say you have no idea.
Wait.
No idea.
Is this a Three Bears situation where there was a right amount of violence and rage that was just like just right? Because the answer seems like none would be that amount, right? Like,
We're talking about just the violence, though, right?
maybe he just quit smoking too.
So the next year, Petey's father was accused of stealing from his job, and he was summarily fired. And since he was fired for stealing, it was impossible for him to find new work. This put a huge financial strain on the family since they had like 1 million fucking kids. Manuela was a cleaner and a laundress, and Petey hunted monkeys in the jungle for their pelts, but, you know, shit was tight without that sweet, sweet security guard money. Pedro's father insisted that he was wrongly fired, that the theft at work was actually committed by the daytime guard. Either way, clearly a problem with the guard situation. I think we've established that. So Petey filed an official appeal with the proper authority seeking administrative redress and a third-party hearing for reinstatement. No, that's just total bullshit. Opposite what he did is he grabbed a machete and a rifle and a tent, and then he spent 30 days camping in the jungle and formulating a plan which seems like maybe it needed a lot less than 30 days to arrive at, but I guess I wasn't the one kicked in the skull as a fetus.
You sure?
I wouldn't just throw that out there, Tom.
I once saw you try to eat a Christmas tree.
I didn't try. I got a lot of that down.
Shitting tinsel like a cat forever.
Anyway, after 30 days, he returned to town and he laid in wait for the deputy mayor, whom he shot and killed in front of City Hall. And I guess that killing was good, but not, a great one. So he then waited at the school for the daytime guard to arrive at work. He murdered that guy, stacked a bunch of junk on the body and set it on fire before boogieing out of there. Pedro, at this point, is 14 years old.
Wow.
Oh, and by the way, the theft that started all of this, seriously, school lunches and some office supplies. So, I don't know, maybe think about that next time you just casually snag a few Post-it notes from the supply closet.
Yeah, in Brazil, school lunch death is a real problem, though. It's a huge problem.
So having killed the deputy mayor, Pedro had to flee town, and he started living with his godmother in a town with just an absolutely unpronounceable name.
But you're doing so well, Tom.
Nah, I'm skipping that one. So there he met Butina, who went by the delightful nickname Booty, and who was the widow of a local drug trafficker. She was also the Brazilian drug kingpin version of, Sexy Fagin from Oliver Twist.
Fagin is Sexy Fagin from Oliver Twist, Tom. Read it.
Also, do you inherit the drug kingpin name if you're the widow gets it?
Well, you gotta leave it in your will. I mean, you don't want to leave that shit up to chance. That's just sloppy estate planning, Heath. So she not only took in the 14-year-old murderer that she had just met, but she began sleeping with him, and she put him to work as a drug trafficker. And I guess he must have been a pretty fair lay, as he quickly made enemies with the older, more experienced drug dealers who were upset that he was getting preferential treatment for fucking the boss lady.
Okay. I feel like he was just doing increasingly elaborate murder scenarios, but they didn't quite work. And she was just like, amazing role play. This is good. This is good. And they're just talking past each other like a sitcom for a while.
All right, so he was warned at this point that he was going to be ambushed and killed. That didn't sit well at all with Pedro. The weird drug dealer Brazilian Lost Boys gang that he was in went to a lagoon to go swimming and get high, and Pedro decided that right about now looked like it might be the ambush. Now, it might not have been, but he wasn't taking any chances, so he pulled out his weapon, and when the other kids fled, he shot and killed two of them as they ran and severely injured a third.
This guy's like a human murderer Roomba. Whatever he bumps into dies. Except for he has less programming because the Roomba will eventually shut off.
I know, you're not wrong. So Pedro eventually made friends with a pair of boys, and they watched each other's backs. Literally, they watched each other sleep to avoid being murdered. This is evidently something you have to worry about if you're also a murderer. The trio began then robbing other drug dealers, including a man, no kidding, named China in Sao Paulo, Brazil, which put Pedro on the radar of the Brazilian death squads. Now, that's bad for Pedro.
Yeah, you're telling me that is a lot of death squads.
I don't
No,
know.
he thinks Brazilian is a large number. You remember?
That comes. Got it. All right, so a quick word on Brazilian death squads.
They're like regular death squads without pubes. Yeah. Seriously, when I wrote in that joke, I had to do like a control F for pubic hair because I was sure I wasn't the first. I was the last one to write into it. I'm like, there must be so many pubes jokes in here, but I got there first.
So these were literally squads of hitmen, many of them police, who were often hired by local merchants, but just as often by drug cartels, to kill Brazilian street children. I'm not at all kidding. There were a ton of street kids in Brazil. There still are. And many of them survived through crime, both petty and severe.
Less of them now. But,
and since there's no social safety net and all of this crime is not good for business, businesses literally pay death squads to just go out and kill the street kids.
Wow.
And most of these death squad members are corrupt cops getting paid for a little murder moonlighting. And these are the guys that were now after Petey and his friends.
The worst part is when the kid gets stuck in the glue trap and he's alive when you go pick it up in the morning. It's like
just
the
squeaking
worst.
like that.
It's the worst.
Careful, though. You're going to give the Trump administration some ideas.
Yeah.
We don't need a wall.
Yeah,
we just need
a
a
one
floor.
giant glue trap. Yeah.
No, I meant in the White House. I meant his staff. No, go ahead. At the Oval Office.
So to hide from the death squads, he began varying where he slept, hunkering down in abandoned cars and churches, cemeteries. That was all working to keep the extermination squads away, but the guys still had to make a living. So they and Booty kept up their work in the drug trade, which, of course, has its own dangers. Tipped off to a deal, they were ambushed by the cops. Booty was killed in a shootout, while Pedro was severely wounded, but ultimately escaped. At this point, he was all of 16 years old.
Wow. Meanwhile, 16-year-old drug dealer Noah is trying to explain the metric system to Southerners and just dying to get injured in a gunfight. 7, that ain't a quarter of nothing. No, man.
Fuck you, Jew. What?
Wounded and alone, Pedro found religion. This doesn't mean what you probably think it means, because the religion he found was Candomblé Macumba, a religion that doesn't get too worked up about issues of good and evil, but which does preach that harm done to someone comes back to bite you in the ass later. It's a very like karmic scales sort of a thing, but with a lot more animal and blood sacrifice. So as part of the initiation, Pedro shaved off all his hair and eyebrows.
That is so Brazilian.
And he met his fellows in an abandoned quarry at midnight, where they all danced around to drums before he was required to kill a cat, drink its blood, and then decorate himself with its guts.
Fuck this guy.
The cat's corpse, of course, was filled with seeds and then buried, and then bada boom, bada bing, ceremony over.
If you switch it out for a dog, this is exactly what Michael Vick made all his offensive linemen do, too.
Oh, God.
Switch it out for a waitress. That's Sarah Huckabee Sanders right now. Cheese plate retribution, bitch. Give it back. Getting stuffed with seeds.
So obviously the only thing to do then is to wait a week and return to the cat's body, dig it up, and then he and his uncle made a necklace from the dead cat seed beads. His uncle warned him never to take off the necklace. He'd be invincible if he wore it. In his autobiography, Pedro says, quote, "From then on, the cops opened fire, but the bullets didn't hit me. My enemies attacked and I defended myself with ease. Nothing would stop me. Before, I was afraid. But after the ceremony, it was as if nothing could affect me."
Okay, the scariest part about that sentence is that it means up until now, he was behaving in a manner which he considered fearful.
Right.
That's true.
That's not the scariest part, though. Okay.
All right, so Pedro now believed that not only was he invincible, but also that he was basically a very, very murdery Brazilian Robin Hood. He hijacked food trucks to feed the poor. He burned shops that cheated the customers. He killed men that he thought harmed women. If he thought a drug dealer was behaving badly, he would target them specifically for robbery.
Nice.
He was also very much into animal rights, so he would punish those who hurt animals by hurting them the same way they hurt the animal. Well, except for that one cat, but no one's going to mention that to Pedro.
Yeah,
but
that one I got to feel like the hypocrisy was thick in the moment, right? Because they can see the cat balls hanging around his neck, right? He's hanging there the whole time. He's, whatever, spurring the equestrian, and the guy really wants to bring it up. But
now, it's at this point that he fell in love with a girl named Maria, which sounds like the opening to a song, and
this needs to be a musical, by the way. Killer Petey, the musical, needs to happen.
As soon as I finish Steed Bonnet.
So Maria, who had every other possible name, none of which I can pronounce, they moved together into their own little love nest slum shack. And I guess when you're a shantytown vigilante, you have to be really careful about leaving the house. You never know who might want to come along and kill your wife. So Pedro hired a man to protect his wife, who was now 7 months pregnant. But the guy did a terrible job, and he was murdered along with Maria and, of course, the 7-month-old fetus. So remember when he got punched in the face and Pedro tried to feed his own cousin into a sugarcane press?
I remember that. You said that. Yep.
Well, someone just murdered his wife and his unborn child and his bodyguard.
Well, this is on him. He should have loaned him the necklace. I mean, what the fuck?
Every night he keeps coming home with another dead cat. Okay, I crushed up the blood and guts in peanut butter. You're being weird about this. You gotta do the fucking spell somehow.
Well, the only problem was that he had now made so many enemies that it was impossible for him to know who had killed his wife, and had written, "We will get you" on the wall with her blood. I mean, you guys know how it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please tell me there's a showdown with a guy wearing Maria as a necklace.
It was the fucking cat, right? The cat comes around, fucking holster on each hip. He's like, 8 lives to go, motherfucker.
Hello. My name is Pedro Rodrigo. Whatever the fuck. I killed my father. Call forward. Call forward, yeah. He kills his father in a minute.
Yeah, audience, he didn't ruin anything for this murderer.
No,
you knew
he
this
kills
was gonna
everybody.
happen.
You knew he was going to get his dad's right
like
there.
that-
He's right all the people that he comes near. He's getting killed.
It's Chekhov's kick in the face. That's what happens. We knew it earlier.
All right, so we've spent about a year just John Wicking his way around, torturing people for information. And eventually he ran into the ex-wife of China, that drug dealer he'd robbed way back when he was just a babe of 16. And she told him that China was the one that ordered Pedro's wife murdered. And then she topped it off by showing Pedro all of her scars and burns and bruises that China had inflicted upon her. I guess just like as murder insurance, but it feels like overselling it a little.
Yeah, this is like the plot of Memento, but the backwards in time stuff is just Brazil. Okay,
Yeah,
I get
no
it.
kidding.
I get it.
So China had a family wedding coming up, and Pedro thought it would be a good idea to get a couple of his buddies together, raid the wedding, and then try to kill every man at the wedding, but
Like
to
you do.
spare the women and children because he is
Right.
not a monster.
Right.
Not a monster. So they crashed the wedding pretending to be guests. And when they got in, they drew their weapons, ordered the women and children upstairs, then murdered China, and then everyone else they could shoot until they ran low on ammunition. They walked across the bloody carnage to the bar where they got drinks. 7 men were killed, 16 more were injured in the massacre, and this was when he earned the nickname Padrino Matador, or Killer Petey.
Or it could have just been that it was a cash bar. Like, I've been there. That's a dick move. Cash bar at your wedding.
You kind of got that one coming
Come
at
on.
that point. I totally agree. So there was nothing left for him to do next but to embrace his fame and live the life of a gangster. So, of course, he promptly began a polyamorous relationship with twin sisters, like you do.
Ooh, a poly relationship with twins. Who does burlesque in that scenario?
What?
All of them.
Oh, yep, that's fair.
So he had now become something of a mythical figure in Brazil, and he bought into his own hype, saying, quote, "I had money, morals, respect, and power." And I guess like all moral heroes, he then tattooed "I kill for pleasure" on his right forearm,
Right, like
and
you
on
do.
his left, Maria's name and "I can kill for love."
All right. This feels like a bad system. He's definitely going to have cross-outs and margin notes and like weird parrots on his tattoos soon. It's not going to work out.
Again, call forward.
Now, he told reporters later that during this time in his life, he killed at least one person every day, saying if he didn't kill someone, he became anxious and agitated. So, you know, obviously either murder someone or meditate. That shit's for hippies, so...
Just sticking a dead guy's skin on your arm like a patch. It's that murder with your morning coffee that's the hardest to give up. Really. It's the hardest.
Oh, yeah, and he also drank the blood of some of his victims from time to time as a way to offer his victims up to the devil, and then, of course, gain the strength of those that he killed.
Gain the strength.
Yeah,
of
and
one.
now
Yeah,
it's Blade complete with blood god mythology.
Yeah,
Okay,
no
all right.
shit.
You shifted gears.
Yeah. And I'm guessing he doesn't pay his income taxes either. So it's a lot like Blade.
Probably not.
So the cops at this point were very interested, as you might imagine, in catching Padrino, but as they closed in on his inner circle, Padrino became more and more paranoid and thus more and more difficult to catch, until the father of the twins that Padrino was banging turned him in because, you know, dads. Pedro was wounded in a gunfight with the police and ultimately captured.
Question. If you're fucking a guy's twin daughters, does he like you half as much or twice as much?
So after recuperating in the hospital for 25 days, he was offered protective custody to avoid going into a prison just full of his enemies. He chose instead to be put in with the Gen Pop, where the brothers, fathers, and sons of many of his victims were waiting for him. He was upset when he learned that he was being charged with only 18 murders, saying, "Only that? It cannot be that little," insisting that his tally was well over 100.
Jesus.
He was convicted of 14 murders and sentenced to 126 years in prison. Now, after the trial...
Feels like a small amount per murder, even if they count
Yeah, right?
low, doesn't it?
So after the trial, they handcuffed Padrino and they put him in a van to transport him to the prison. And when they opened the van doors on arrival at the prison, he had already killed the other guy in the van with him.
That driver was really into the fresh air interview he was listening to. He was super into it. Terry Gross is the best.
All right, a brief touch of context on prisons in Brazil in the 70s.
Thank you.
They were terrible. They were unbelievably, unsurvivably terrible. Extreme violence and diseases such as dengue fever and tuberculosis ran rampant through the population. Few prison sentences longer than 10 years were ever served out, with most prisoners dying from disease or murder rather than serving their time successfully. Gangs ran the prisons entirely, and it was not uncommon for disputes to be settled with a prisoner beheaded or disemboweled as a warning to the other gangs.
Conflict resolution. Got it.
Yeah, right?
Works itself out in payroll.
I mean, it would get my attention. I'm not saying that wouldn't get my attention. Would work. The prisoners were left to their own devices by the guards, who were outnumbered and just kind of indifferent. In fact, the keys for the internal locks in the prison were handed over to the prisoners who ran the prison, and the guards just tried to maintain control of the locks for the outside doors. Pedro entered this prison full of his enemies at the age of 19.
Yeah, and they probably didn't even let him keep his magic cat balls. So.
Yeah, no word on that, actually. I wonder. So I don't think they took him off based on how the story ends. When he first entered the yard, he was immediately surrounded by 5 men, having already sharpened a spoon into a shiv as literally the first thing he did in prison. 3 of the 5 men who attempted to jump Pedro ended up dead, and the other 2 ended up terribly wounded. It became quite clear to the prisoners that Pedro solved all of his problems with just murder. When a shiv wasn't readily available, he killed with his bare hands, choking necks and breaking them, teaching himself his own version of martial arts in his cell, and spending hours punching the walls until they were caked with his blood in an effort to toughen his body and harden himself to pain.
Okay, prisoner 24601.
Can I
This
get a
is going to
spoon?
be your...
Like right now?
No.
Right? So during his stay in prison, Pedro's mother ended up getting macheted to death. Pedro was so feared at this point that none of the prisoners were willing to be the one to tell him.
Drawing straws.
A guard finally had to come in, find him in the yard, bring him to the warden's office, who told him of the murder. And the murderer was Pedrino's father, the fetus kicker.
I swear to God, I thought you were going to tell me the murder was him.
He snuck back in afterwards.
The next week, his father's sister, Pedrino's aunt, fearing that Pedrino would seek vengeance, brought a cake to the prison as a peace offering. Pedrino cut the cake into pieces and fed it to his cellmates and some of the dogs that the prisoners kept as pets. The cake, in fact, was poisoned, and so too were his cellmates and the dogs. For the poisoning of his cellmates, Pedrino was transferred to the same prison that his father was being kept at.
That's a weird system. So they had a prison for serial killers who get 126 years, and a click above that is a prison for cake stuff? What? Poison? What?
Well, it must have, because one day while he was in the cake stuff prison, he pretended he was ill. And when the guard came to check on him, he ambushed the guard, took his
is
gun.
the new Black Forest. Sorry. Prison cake thing that occurred to me just now.
So he ambushed the guard. He took that guy's gun. He gathered the other guards together, locked them in a cell, and then he went in search of his father. And I love this. When he entered the cell block where his father was being kept, so did his reputation. So all the other inmates ran out, leaving Pedrino and his father alone in the cell block. Pedrino stabbed his father 22 times, cut out his dad's heart, chewed a chunk of it for a while, and then spat it onto his father's lifeless body.
Jesus.
I love that was definitely an awkward moment, too. He definitely tore out the heart, and he's all excited for this big, impactful moment. And then he was just like, all right, fuck, this is really gristly. You can't just eat an entire raw beating heart very easily. I thought I was going to do like a Shao Kahn thing.
He looks around, he realizes he's in there alone, right? He's like, oh, fuck, what's the point?
Who is this? Who is this for, Petey? Who is this for? He's asking, he's like, do you guys have a flosser? Because I got a piece. It's like stuck.
Oh, you know what would be great if I sous vide this heart? I need a bag.
He was just embarrassed that he filled up on hearts on his way there, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, God, I don't even want it.
Hartar.
So when he was finished with all that, he walked back to the cell where he'd locked up the guards. He gave them back their own guns, surrendered his knife, and allowed himself to be taken away without a fuss. After avenging his mother, Pedrino gained the nickname The Punisher, though he began to calm down a little, even going so far as to make some friends, including a man named Cloju, who ended up staying with Pedrino's family after Cloju was released from prison. Okay, So guys,
Nice.
what is the one thing that you absolutely would definitely not do if you were in Kloju's situation
Kill
right now?
Pedrino's family at all in any way.
That is, if
hurt
you
someone in his family.
100% the right answer.
Yeah.
Definitely not what Kloju did. He accidentally killed Pedrino's sister.
Accidentally.
Yeah, he got mad at Pedrino's brother actually and shot his gun randomly and ended up killing the sister. So like they got into a
He got mad at somebody and then he was like, spinny, 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 bam.
yeah, right.
Oh. Shouldn't have done that randomly.
Didn't
that
think
was
that
dumb.
one through.
That's
Didn't
it.
think that one through. Oh.
All right, and so after killing Pedrino's sister, he of course gets sent back to prison. Prison is where Pedrino lives. So that's bad for him. Pedrino, however, reassured Kloju that, hey, shit happens. They resumed their friendship. And everything was going fine until one day when Pedrino just decapitated his friend, later saying, quote, he was my friend, but I just had to kill him. I was justified.
I get it. I just randomly decided to swing a sword, and it was right. His head was the random spot.
You know when you're accidentally shooting a
Happened.
gun because you're mad at something? It's a lot like that.
It's funny.
So the Brazilian public had become infatuated with Pedrino. They saw him as a kind of righteous avenger. He began to receive love letters, which isn't super abnormal for famous prisoners. But then he also received like these murder letters, as in people would send him letters basically saying, hey, you know, Bill over in Cell Block D, well, he beat up my sister. Can you go kill him for me? And then if Pedrino thought that the letters were sincere, he would oblige and then just go murder that person.
This is a long distance dedication.
Oh, mierda tetas. Cecil, mierda tetas.
Now, a lot in the media has been made about how Pedrino only killed bad guys, but that's total bullshit, because in his own autobiography, he claims to have killed a man for having a stupid face, and he killed another guy for snoring too loud. And I guess as much as I hate stupid-faced snorers, I think it'd be hard-pressed to call that justified. On another occasion, he killed a prisoner for looking at him while he was having sex with his girlfriend. On another occasion, he killed a prisoner for looking at him while he was having sex with his girlfriend.
Well, I feel like someone having sex out in the open deserves at least a glance. It's rude otherwise. I mean, you're doing it for that reason.
Also, why is Pedro looking around, head on a swivel, catching people's eyes during that?
Exactly.
That's on you.
Yeah.
All right, so by now his death toll had reached 71 confirmed. He'd accumulated a sentence of 400 years. They transferred him to a psychiatric facility, and they ordered him to be kept away from contact with anyone, just anyone. The facility's structure was so effective at keeping Pedrino isolated that he wasn't able to murder anyone at all for quite a while. He began instead having dreams that his victims appeared to him in the form of animals, which he would then kill over and over again.
I'm sorry, a psychiatric hospital? I don't want to be that guy, but I think Killer Petey is what's known as a goner in the medical profession. We don't need
Yeah, right. They don't have it's not a pill for that.
All right, so he was kept completely isolated. He had no contact with other patients or inmates, and the guards were ordered to shoot him if he tried anything, just ever at all. And after several years, a new inmate known as the Park Maniac entered the prison. Now, the Park Maniac had raped and murdered 11 women, which, as you know by now, really got Pedrino all worked up. When asked about the new inmate, Pedrino said, quote, my biggest dream in my life is to break that neck, end quote. Of course, this was impossible since he was locked away in complete isolation, as was the Park Maniac. And when a riot occurred in the prison and Pedrino didn't sneak away and kill the Park Maniac, the Brazilian public was openly disappointed in Pedrino for not vigilante killing someone.
How did they know about all that? Is there like box scores? Is that like a fantasy league? What?
It's a Deadpool.
Deadpool. All right, so here's a crazy fucking thing about Brazil. There's an old law that says that it is illegal to keep a man imprisoned for life. The longest sentence allowed by law is 30 years. Generally, this is not a problem, even for super violent criminals, because no one survives Brazilian prison for 30 years. What? So it's kind of an academic exercise, except for Pedrino, who had become eligible for release in 2003.
Yeah, like I'm sympathetic to the goal of that law. I actually am, but it seems like they'd they'd have put in a but not if that brings it down to 5 months per murder clause in there. They thought of that.
So as 2003 approached, Pedrino was transferred out of the psychiatric facility and back to the regular prison, where he became a model inmate, not killing anyone at all, and promising that if he were released, he wouldn't kill anyone unless, of course, he came across the park maniac, because, everybody gets a hall pass. He told reporters that once he was released, he'd stop killing people and get a job doing something normal, like work in a slaughterhouse. This was seriously his plan. Like, I will totally stop killing people, but come on, you can't expect me to just kill nothing all day.
I love your enthusiasm, Petey, but when you strangle him, that takes too long. Okay, we have a gun. Bolt.
So the police, the prison authorities, politicians, they were all scrambling to find some way to keep him in prison because oh my God, this fucking guy. A judge finally found an interpretation of the law that would allow his release to be postponed another 14 years. That interpretation, however, wasn't immune to appeal, and in 2007, 34 years after entering prison, having killed at least 41 people while in prison, Pedrino was released.
Yeah, but those 41 people were like when you're over calories for the day and you tell yourself, it's just one more brownie, right? I mean, it's just another brownie. No big deal.
All right, now, mind you guys, Pedrino wasn't paroled. He was just straight up released. That's it. Free man now. So he moved to a remote area of Brazil and found a little pink cottage to rent. You heard that right. Brazil's most notorious, infamous serial killer was now living in a dollhouse in the country. He got a dog. He started going to regular church without all the cat guts. His release was short-lived, however, as more charges were filed against him from his time in prison, citing his role in 6 prison riots that he had taken a part in. And he was rearrested. And he was also charged with possession of a weapon as he was carrying a pistol at the time of his rearrest.
Man, that was a weird day at the police precinct, huh?
Okay, man, we're off to go capture the murderiest murderer who ever murdered.
Not it.
Damn it. What? No. Come on. It's not funny. I'm going to get murdered.
Nope.
I'm literally going to get murdered. Those are assholes.
So fan mail poured in even faster after his rearrest. He became famous, interviewed by celebrities and journalists. He spent his days working out at 4 a.m. every morning and, of course, punching the walls of his cell like a caged animal. Oh, and answering his fan mail. 6 years later, at the age of 64, in 2013, he was again released from prison.
Yeah, not so much released as he just punched the prison wall down and walked out. That's pretty much what happened.
So once on the outside, an attempt was almost immediately made on his life. I love this, by several of his enemies. But he escaped when the original attempt failed and his attackers had to leave to get reinforcements. Because I guess it takes a village.
Jesus.
Yeah, right. Like at this point, by escaped, I assume what you mean is that 6 guys are coming up behind him. He sneezed. They're all 3 blocks away before somebody's like, we should tell the reinforcements he escaped.
Right. All right, guys. Now here is the part that I can't fucking even. Killer Petey, Pedrino Matador, he is on Facebook.
Yeah, he is.
What? He is on Facebook right now. He has a few thousand friends. He posts motivational quotes and shows off his cooking skills.
He's on more platforms than Alex Jones. That's impressive.
Yes. This guy who ate part of his own dad's heart is on Facebook taking food selfies. This is a thing that is happening in the world right now. He gets new tattoos and takes pictures of them and posts them. He replaced his I kill for pleasure tattoo with a scorpion tattoo. He covered Maria's name with a feather. A tattoo that said revenge on it has been covered over with one that says love. Aww. And all of this shit is on his Facebook page.
Most importantly, he also, I shit you not, has a bunch of tagged pictures he takes with fans who pose with him like he's punching them, presumably to death. That's his signature little like, hey, I'm getting murdered by Pedrino.
So this guy also has a YouTube channel where he tells kids to say no to drugs and to stay out of trouble with the law. He rails on against skateboarding. He gets accosted in public for selfies wherever he goes. He holds the record in Brazil for having survived living in prison longer than anyone else in Brazil's history.
Shut the fuck up.
That's terrifying.
That is terrifying.
And he is, and I am not at all kidding, currently available for motivational speaking gigs.
Okay, you guys know what we have to do. We have to book him, give him a single cigarette, and put him in a cage with Noah. Am I right? Like, this is obvious. And if you had to summarize what you learned in one sentence, Tom, what would it be?
I guess that after being released from murder prison, a good option for me will be advice columnist.
There you go. Are you ready for the quiz?
I'm going to kill this thing.
All right. So I got an obvious one for you, Tom. What should the movie about this guy be called? A. Patricide Story. B. Peter Pumpkin Eater. C. Dawn of the Dent.
Dawn of the Dent.
Or D. Brazilian Squalor Baby.
Phenomenal.
That is so good. That is so good. Brazilian Squalor Baby is amazing.
They're all so good, but I think Patricide Story has to win with his Maria thing. I think that's a given.
That is correct, man. That is correct. It also allows us to use Heath's amazing Inigo Montoya jokes. So.
All right, Tom. Is a vigilante Antifa white hat mass murderer the hero America deserves?
Yes.
Yes. A, yes. Eli's already voted A. B, no. C, let's start a podcast about it called Cereal and Milkshake.
Yes.
Or yes. D, Andy No can go fuck himself either way.
Well, it's clearly C, and I think we'll volunteer Cecil to edit it. Cecil.
Awesome.
That is correct. Don't attack, don't assault journalists, but yeah, Andy No can fuck himself either way.
Okay, Tom. We're all super upset that he killed the cat, but Petey knew what we didn't. Who was the cat? A, Ayatollah Catmani. B, Clawligula. C, Jack the Nipper. D, Polcott. Or
Phenomenal.
E, he wasn't a famous murderer. He was just going to orchestrate the purge.
Oh.
The purge.
Just from Heath's response alone, I got to go with Clawligula.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Polcott. Polcott. Sorry.
Yep. Unfortunately, now Cecil, because Cecil used the list of terrorist / cat names that he's had waiting for months, the winner this week is Cecil.
It pays to be prepared. I'm going to pick Noah next time.
All right. Well, for Cecil, Noah, Heath, and Tom, I'm Eli, thanking you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week, and by then, Noah will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can kill a man with your bare hands just to feel in control of this spinning whirling fiery hell, if only for a moment. What is happening? And if you'd like to help keep the show going, you can make a per episode donation.
Responding to the thing I just said? What?
We're just gonna go right past that. We're just going right past that.
Pod. Or leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. And if you'd like to keep in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes. Be sure to check out citationpod.com. And remember, you never feel more alive than when you're killing.
I gotta tell you, Cecil, this pancetta is delicious.
Right? Grocery store. It's really good.
Crazy. So good.
Oh, and when I murdered that guy, I took his wedding ring. See?
Cool.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/get-started. That's GREENLIGHT.com/get-started.